All right, I want to welcome to the show Amelia Boone, winner of World's Toughest Mudder 2012, and also you were runner-up in 2011, right?
Correct.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about yourself and where you're living, where you're from, and how you got started in obstacle racing.
Well, let's see. I'm currently living in Chicago, Illinois. I've been here for about 2.5 years or so. But I'm originally from the Northwest, Pacific Northwest. I was born and raised in Portland. Lived in Seattle for a while. So I'm an attorney here. I spent a lot of time in the office, and I actually got my start in obstacle racing with coworkers. Actually, one of my coworkers found a Tough Mudder and was like, "Hey, this looks like fun." And so we went as a group of us coworkers, and they all thought it was fun and that, like, hey, it would be cool to maybe do it again sometime. But I was, immediately just kind of enthralled with it, and then went from there and just started doing more and more races.
So were you always this athletic, or did you just get into it?
I played sports growing up. I was a very athletic kid. I played softball, soccer, basketball year round. I was always traveling from practice to practice and traveling with teams. But after high school, I just decided to kind of focus on academics. In college, I was nowhere good enough to play in D1 somewhere. So I kept up, training and running after that. But a part of me really kind of missed the competitiveness of sports. And I think that's really kind of what led me back into trying to do obstacle racing competitively. It's something, I ran road races, but they were a bit too boring for my taste. So.
And where did you go to college and law school?
I was at Washington University in St. Louis for undergrad, and then I was in law school at University of Washington in Seattle. Okay. So I confused people with the moving back and forth between two Washingtons, but...
That's awesome. So you were talking a little bit about your first toughest mudder or your first Tough Mudder, and then so how did that translate into the 2011 Tough Mudder or World's Toughest Mudder?
Well, I ran it and I had a blast, and I submitted my time, and I found out I qualified for the World's Toughest Mudder, which, to be honest, I think at that point anybody who submitted a time probably qualified for it because it was new. And I remember I think I had a week to register with like a discount, and I don't really know what possessed me to like go ahead and do it, because I never even really pulled an all-nighter. I don't know what I thought I could do by running for 24 hours, but I was like, why not? Give it a shot. So I remember signing up and then immediately regretting it and being like, well, if I can't do it, if I don't want to do it, I'm only out a couple $100 and that's fine. But it was fun, because then I started meeting people on the internet, connecting with other people who were doing it, and we kind of formed a group and got to know each other, and then went out and ran this race that nobody had any idea what it was going to be like, and I think people just were decimated by it. So.
And what kind of training did you do that first year?
I started doing a lot of long runs, and I was actually injured. I was in a boot with a stress fracture for like 2 months leading up to it. So I got out of the boot about a month before World's Toughest in 2011, and so I was swimming a lot. I was swimming a lot and biking, but I never really did anything crazy or out of the ordinary. I trained maybe for like an hour to maybe like 2 hours max on the weekends. Sometimes, I'd do a longer session on the weekend, and then I would, do 6 days a week or so, but nothing extreme. So.
No,
how do you train for that?
Yeah.
You just don't. That's the beauty of it. You just go out and run it.
Now, I lived in Chicago for 4 years for graduate school, and So I got into triathlons there basically because there's a huge tri scene in Chicago, and so I was just curious, like, where did you swim? Did you swim in the lake? Did you have like a pool that you go to?
No, I had a pool. I mean, this was November too, so you're
Oh
not going
yeah.
to swim outside of Chicago in the winter.
Well, if you're getting ready for World's Toughest Mudder, maybe you would.
Well, it's actually funny. There was one time that I went out. We were having a huge windstorm, and I decided to go out for a run because it was freezing and we were having a windstorm. And I was like running along the lake, and they had apparently closed a section of it. And I didn't really know there were barricades up, but I was like, whatever. And I like ran around, and the police officer chased me down. I was like, we can arrest you for running along here. And I'm like, I'm fine. Like the waves were coming up and over on Lakeshore, so.
I got caught in a sandstorm once on like Oak Street. My friend and I rode our bikes out to do some open swimming, and all of a sudden there was just like this crazy storm, and we had to put our goggles on because the sand was blasting us in the face. So I love Chicago, but it is a windy city.
Yes, definitely.
So then, okay, so 2011, nobody really knew what to expect. Like, were people wearing wetsuits? Like, I heard it was a lot colder that year than this year. What was that experience?
Well, so it was interesting because there was this people kind of broke into this wetsuit and non-wetsuit camp leading up to it. A lot of people, like, I had never been in a wetsuit. You know, I didn't do tries. I didn't do anything like that. I only swam because it was the only thing I could do. When I had a stress fracture. So I didn't really know. People were saying, like, you don't want to be in a wetsuit for 24 hours because that's bad for you. You're going to get dehydrated. You're going to overheat. So, you know, I think some people brought them, some people didn't. I was smart. I think in retrospect, I was smart or just lucky in that I brought one. And I brought a long one, then I also brought a neoprene hood. And didn't wear it for the first lap, as I don't think anybody did. And as soon as we got in that water, like people dropped out after one lap because of like hypothermia. I mean, it was definitely colder. It dropped down in the teens at night that year, and I remember wading through the water and breaking ice as we were walking through some of like 1 mile. No, seriously, like we had to break the ice, and it was
man,
it was bad. And I remember just like it definitely, the conditions were really, really bad, and I don't think Tough Mudder headquarters was prepared for how bad it was going to be either. Perhaps maybe why they moved it up by a month this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of the criticism people talked about, like, oh, well, you know, if you had the right gear, you were fine, and this didn't really test your athletic abilities. It tested like how good your gear was. But you know, you look at Jun Young, and like he was like fashioning wetsuits out of like scraps that other people had left behind. You know, like this, there was still a lot of athletic ability involved. You know, it wasn't the gear. So luckily things were a bit warmer this year, though it still got pretty cold. So.
And then tell me a little bit about like how many laps did you do 2011, and how many did Juliana do?
I did 5 in 2011, and she did 6. Yeah, I mean, I think nobody really knew what to expect and how fast to go out or how long of breaks to take. Like at one point, I remember after the first lap, I had to sit in my tent for like 2 hours and warm myself up and get back. Like my body temperature was so low. Like I had to get my core temperature back to normal. So there was a lot of stopping and starting for me. You know, so I remember afterwards I was like, oh, I did 5 laps. I was like, 5 laps in 24 hours does not seem like a lot, but it was just, you know, it was the first time anybody had done that, and so we didn't know what it was going to be like or how long of a break to take or how fast everybody else was going to be running.
And did you know like where other people were in the race at that point?
I think they had, I didn't really know until probably like the early hours of the morning. I had known pretty much that there were a lot of girls in front of me because I had taken a big break. But then I just kept hearing that like people kept dropping out and getting cold and getting hypothermia, and then all of a sudden there were like 2 women left. So, I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess, I started out slow, but I outlasted everybody else. So, that's I guess I kind of was fortunate to fall into that. But
now, do you remember afterwards, like, was there any big meal that you really wanted to eat to refuel, or that your body was just craving?
So it's funny, I actually couldn't eat anything. Like, I was just sick to my stomach. That year we had rented a house down the Jersey Shore. There were about like 15 or 16 of us that rented a house. And we drove back down there, and people went to go get like tacos for us or something. And I couldn't. I sat in the shower for about an hour. Like, I literally sat down in the shower for about an hour. And I couldn't get anything down. I ended up like drinking a few beers and like eating some crackers, and that was like the extent of it. So, but that's pretty par for the course for me after races. That my appetite doesn't come back for a few days, and then I just eat everything in sight. So, or at least races of that length and magnitude. But
yeah, I've never done anything like 24-hour or anything like that. But after some of the longer triathlons that I've done, I always would be craving like Bennigan's Monte Cristo sandwich, which is just like a big deep fried like.
I guess. It's funny, like, this past year after this most recent, there's this frozen yogurt store in New Jersey called Yogo, and we don't have it here in the Midwest. And all I wanted was like a huge thing of frozen yogurt. That's what I ate after World Toughest Mudder. After winning $15,000, frozen yogurt.
How much frozen yogurt can $15,000 buy?
I was like, this is sad.
So fast forward a little bit to like 2012. Did you start planning immediately and thinking, oh, I can win this next year, or was it just like still way up in the air?
To be honest, I had no desire to go back and do it. I think it was I think it was like a little bit of PTSD. I remember when they announced the date and they reopened registration, and I just remember, like, because it was the coldest I'd ever been in my life. It was the most miserable I'd ever been in my life. And, I was doing other races, and I was finding other things that I liked. And so I was like, I just don't know if I want to put myself through that again. Like, there were points where I thought, like, my body was just going to fail. So it took me a while to warm up to the idea. And I was actually originally going to run as a team with 3 guys.
Okay. I remember you were saying that on Matt's show. And,
and then Todd Sedlak shattered his leg, which, thanks, Todd. On my end, at least. But,
have you seen that calendar with the guys in it? Todd's picture is especially noteworthy.
Of course, yes. I expected his to be above and beyond.
So you mentioned you did a couple of other races in 2012. What other types of things did you do?
So I had signed up for the winter and the summer death race before I even did World's Toughest Mudder. So like a couple weeks before, and I was like, wow, I really hope this is the right decision. I ran both of those. I finished both of those, and I mean, the death race is entirely different than an obstacle. It's not an obstacle race, but it's such a great group of people, and such, like, it's fairly intimate, and it's Joe and Andy's show, so it's fun to go up and run around in the woods for a few days every once in a while during the year, and then and I ran other obstacle races, just regular Spartan races, a few Tough Mudders, things like that.
Now, how do you place usually in the Spartan races?
So to be honest, I've only run 2 Spartan races. I started with the death race. My first Spartan
Isn't that supposed to be like after?
Yeah, I've done the opposite. I started with the death race, and then I worked my way down. I ran the Ultra Beast. I finished second in the Ultra Beast, and then I ran the Midwest Super Spartan, and I won that. And then I was supposed to run the Texas Beast, but I was still too injured from World's Toughest Mudder.
Yeah.
So I needed a few weeks to recover. But
So you probably didn't get in enough races to do well in the points.
no, I ended up. It's funny because I didn't really understand this point system at all, and it doesn't. But I didn't really start. I mean, the first one I ran was in September. Was the Ultra Beast. So I ended up finishing still from doing so well in 2 races, like finishing in the top 50 for women, which I found kind of hilarious because there were women that ran like 15, 16 races that had as many points as I did.
Yeah.
But who knows? I plan on running some more this year. Not necessarily like for points or whatever, but just because they're fun. Hopefully I can get out to do some more.
And so how did you train differently for 2012?
Well, I started CrossFit.
Okay.
One of my big weaknesses in 2011 was definitely my upper body strength. I had a really hard time with the monkey bars, with the rings, with getting myself over walls. It's just the upper body strength wasn't there. So I started CrossFit about 9 months ago. And to be honest, I didn't actually... I think I trained endurance-wise. I trained less for World's Toughest Mudder than I did the year before. Like, I stopped running, really, just because I kept injuring myself when I was running. But I knew that I could make it. Like, from doing the death race, from doing the Ultra Beast, like, I knew that I could run, distances and be fine. So I focused more on strength. And definitely things were easier this time around. I never had a problem with the walls, like the rings, the monkey bars. So the obstacles were much easier this time around. And to be honest, I actually didn't know if I had a big work deal going on at the time. I didn't make the final decision to actually go to World's Toughest Mudder until like 3 days before.
Oh, wow.
In which I was throwing everything into my suitcase, like at 3 o'clock in the morning, being like, okay, what's going on now?
And
I didn't have a place to stay. I didn't have, it was bad.
And you said the obstacles were a little easier. Other people have said the obstacles were easier. Was that, do you think, because you were better trained strength-wise, or because they were actually easier?
It's funny. I'm trying to remember back. I think the placement of some of the obstacles this year made the course flow better. I feel like the course definitely flowed better. One of the main things was that the walk the plank was not a big jump and then a swim across the lake, which was killer last year. Like, that was separate. You still had to go across the lake twice or 3 times, just like you did last year, but it wasn't the jump. I'm trying to remember. The problem is last year they shut down a fair number of obstacles pretty early on because they got dangerous and icy. So maybe the first go around, but I still thought that there were some pretty tough ones this year. They added a new one that was like this, I think it was called Balls to the Wall. That was actually pretty tough, getting up a rope and over this like tiny little structure, especially when it got icy. So, I think I haven't really done an analysis, but they seem fairly on par to me.
Okay. And then, so you knew probably, I don't know how far ahead of time, but you hadn't even made your decision yet, but you knew Juliana wasn't going to be there. Had you heard of Deanna Blake or any of the other people that were going to be, kind of at your heels?
No, I guess I heard about Juliana like a week or so before, and I love her and she's fantastic, and so, it would have been nice to have her back out there before. I didn't know Deanna at all. All I knew is that people kept telling me during the race, they're like, there's this Australian woman like 10 minutes behind you, and I'm like, it was actually Matt Davis who figured out, got some info on her, and figured out, because obviously we all think that we all know each other, but like we forget that these are international events and that there are people coming from all over the world, and every year it's just going to get tougher and tougher. So I had known a few other women that were going to be there that you know, I knew were going to be contenders, but I guess I just kept running. When people kept telling me they were right behind me, I just kept running.
Now, did you get or give much help? Because I know Toughest Mudder or Tough Mudder is all about, you know, the camaraderie, and I heard stories where Jung Young was helping people. So do you feel like you got help, or how much help did you get compared to last time?
Yeah, last year I ran it almost the entire thing with Joel Gatt. So we helped each other, like, you know, and he helped me enormously over everything. This year, you know, there definitely people helped on Everest, and it's funny, being a woman, I tried to help. People won't let you help as a woman. I swear to God, like, over the 12-foot walls, which are, you know, very few people can get up and over on their own. Like, I would be on top of the wall, and I would be like, hold my hand, come on up. And people are like, no, just go. Thanks, I guess, but at the same time, like, you know, I can't help you as well. So definitely, you know, when I tried, just because it's an odd thing that it is a team thing. It's like about camaraderie, but then you're also trying to beat everybody else. But people were fantastic, and especially like later on, towards the end, when they realized that I was the leader. And, you know, I was like, hey, do you guys want help? They're like, no, you're going to win this. Go on, you know. So, you know, if people needed me, I was there. But maybe that's a perk to being a woman. I don't know.
And so what keeps you going? Like, I can't even imagine 90 miles. I think the most I've ever run in competition was like 13. So I mean, it was a half iron, you know, so I was biking and stuff like that, but even still, the whole thing was like 8 hours.
Right.
So how do you keep going, and like, especially in the middle of the night when you're probably tired? And I mean, I pulled many all-nighters in college, so so I know how that feels, but I'm also not freezing cold and walking through mud. So how do you do that?
Well, it's funny because I think what I did right this year as opposed to last year is that I kept moving. I think what hurts you in these races is if you stop and take a break and you sit down, and because the hardest thing is getting back out there. So the longest that I've ever rested was maybe 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes. And aside from that, I was like grabbing food and just getting back on my way. You kind of start occupying yourself in your own ways in your mind. Like, what I would do is I would route out the course, and I would start, since you run it over and over again, I'd be like, okay, so I'm here. The next obstacle is X. Do I need to take off my gloves? Do I need to put on my gloves? You know, like, I made it very routine in that in the tunnels, I would always go through the same tunnel. I would always go across the same monkey bars, across the same rings, just little kind of like things to keep yourself sane, to keep your mind thinking, but not too much. And besides that, I think you're just on autopilot. But I sang to myself. I had songs running through my head. And to be honest, I stopped, and I didn't really stop, but like when I was like shuffling by other people or people were coming by me, I chatted with people, and that's the one thing that keeps you sane, is to talk to everybody else out there.
Now, are you an actual singer? Like, will you go out and do karaoke, or were you just like doing it for yourself?
No, I actually I was trained classically growing up, and then I sang a cappella in college, which was fantastic. So I've lost my touch, but I still sing to myself.
Well, you know, now that everybody knows, we're going to have to hear some songs in the future. I'm not going to make you sing right now, but next time I meet you...
Cocktails, maybe, but that's...
Yeah, cocktails and karaoke are always a good mix.
Right.
So at what point... I guess at what, were you always ahead, or were you, like, how close were people throughout the race?
I was always in the. I took the lead from the very beginning. I never lost it. I think the closest somebody got to me was about 10 minutes. But that's the thing about being in the lead is you never really know. It's a horrible feeling. Let me tell you, because I've actually like really never been in the lead for anything except for like one other race. Like I've never been like known I was in the lead, and it's horrible. It's like somebody's chasing you the entire time. It's like that fear. Like you keep turning around your shoulder, turning and like looking over your shoulder, thinking any minute somebody's gonna run by you. So it was very exhausting, actually.
I remember I was like sitting in church, and I never ever like check my phone or do anything like that in church. And Matt had tweeted like, Amelia's 5 minutes behind pack, and I'm like freaking out, checking my phone in church, feeling like a total like heathen sinner going straight to hell. But at the same time, I was like really excited. I couldn't believe like just how close it was. Did you know it was that close?
So I didn't know about pack until probably, I don't know, like halfway through the final lap. I started out on the final lap. I remember heading back into the pit after finishing, my 8th lap, and then running by, literally grabbing a bottle of Ensure and running with it, just going, popping some Advil, I think, because I was in a lot of pain. And so I think because he had rested between that like 8 and 9, like I cut off a lot of time there. So I didn't realize how close I was until like the COO, I think, came up alongside of me like halfway through the course and starts running alongside of me telling me this, and they're like, Pack's like 5 minutes ahead, you can catch him, run faster. And I'm like, I can't run faster.
Was that Guy Livingstone, or who's the COO? I forget.
I don't know. I don't think he's the CEO. It was Alex Patterson.
Oh, okay.
Was running alongside of me. So sorry, Alex, if I botched your title. I don't know what you are.
Well, I heard that Guy actually did some laps.
Really? I don't know if I saw him out there.
I just saw the pictures from Matt's posts.
Yeah, no, he was running alongside of me and talking to me, and so I knew maybe like 10-15 minutes into the final lap that Deanna had called it quits. So I knew that I had won for women, which was fantastic. But like now everybody wanted me to people kept being like, you're getting closer, and I was like, at some point I was like, I don't care, I just want to finish. Go home. So, but it's fun. It was exciting to be that close, and I think on the final tire drag, he was finishing as I was starting, and that was the first time that I'd seen him on the course, actually. So, for the entire 24 hours. So. Wow,
that is so cool. So what was it like just crossing that finish line? And were you like crying? Did you fall to your knees and pass out? Did you throw up? Like
no, I guess I was so I was really kind of dazed and out of it, to be completely honest. I was exhausted. But it was just a feeling of relief. It was just like, oh, thank God it's over. And I was like, get me to a warm shower. So I went and ran to like one of the showers and just like sat in there and tried to wash the mud off my face, because if you've seen pictures, like I was just crusted. I was like, oh my God, why did somebody tell me to clean off my face before I
Oh, it's worth it. It's worth it.
God, I guess so. And then they took me in the medical tent and checked me out to make sure I was okay. And then like the award ceremony was like right away. So at that point, I was kind of still trying to comprehend all of it. Like, wow, I won this, and this is over and it's done. And then I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to drive back to the airport right now? So
Did you have you like the prior year? You said you had a big group of people. Was there many people like with you this time around, or you literally had to drive yourself to the airport?
So I was lucky. I didn't have any family or friends come in just because it's a really crappy race to watch as a spectator.
Yeah.
You know, because it's 24 hours long, and you know I live far away. But I was lucky and fortunate that there were a couple guys that helped me out afterwards, helped me pack up my stuff, and drove my car for me back to the airport, so I didn't have to drive because I probably could have driven, but
Yeah, no, not.
to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
So they were lifesavers for that. There's some really good people out there.
Now, in an interview with Matt, Ray Upshaw had said, "I really hope Amelia doesn't win." What was that about? Like, he said he would never hear the end of it. So, have you given him a hard time since you won?
No, I haven't talked to Ray at all. I don't know where that came from. It's funny because I heard people were like, "Holy crap, you have to listen to this." And I think what he was referring to is that I ran the race, almost the entire race last year with Joel Gatt, and I think he was thinking that the only reason I finished was because of Joel. No offense, Joel, but he knows now that I would be dragging his ass this year. I love you, Joel. So I don't know where that came from. Ray is a character. I have no ill will towards him, but I'm sorry if I disappointed you, Ray. But I mean, I won.
And what about so what about the $15,000? Like, do you get a little check? Because we all saw the big one, but it's not like Happy Gilmore where you put it in the back of your car and take it to the bank.
No, it's actually still sitting. The big one's sitting in my living room. After I asked if they could mail it to me, which by the way they did a fantastic packaging job. I realized I'm like, now what do I do with this? Now it's in my living room and it's still sitting there. No, I mean they sent me a regular size check that I could deposit, and so it was. It's nice. It's going towards paying off law school loans. So.
Yes, as a professional, I understand. Having the 3 mortgages over my head, so it certainly does. What did you say?
People are like, "What are you doing with your money?" And I'm like, paying off loans and putting it in savings. Like I went and got a massage. That was like the extent of it. And it's obviously, if you think about how much money I've spent on races and flying races and stuff like that, it's a nice kind of evening out thing. So.
Yeah. Now, being that you've won World's Toughest Mudder and you've placed very well in some of the Spartan races, do you see yourself racing more or racing more professionally now that Reebok is on board and there's more money coming in?
It's funny because I think a part of me is like, well, maybe I should just retire and go out on top. I'm going to keep running as long as it's fun for me. I am a professional, and my full-time commitment is to my job as an attorney. So as time allows, I will go and race. So a lot of these races, it's really last minute for me. All my flights I get as refundable. Thank you, Southwest. So if I have to bow out, I have to bow out. So, money has never really been a motivation for me. It's nice, but at the same time, I do this just because it's fun, and I'm going to try and get to as many as possible, and keep doing it, and as long as I have fun doing it. And I think the Reebok partnership should be fantastic, so we'll see what comes out of that, but for the time being, I hope still that is, it's still kind of, I think Joe said in his letter that they'll retain the soul of obstacle racing, which I'm sure that they will. So
I just want to ask you real quickly about that, because you're into CrossFit and you probably run into like heavy duty CrossFitters there in Chicago. How do they feel about the whole Reebok sponsorship, and how do they feel about like Reebok's relationship to CrossFit, and how do you think that translates to the obstacle racing?
Yeah, I think Reebok has done. I think Reebok sponsoring CrossFit has done fantastic things for the sport of fitness. In terms of getting it out there and you know, having it be on TV and having kind of legitimizing it as a sport. You know, there's always going to be people who have been CrossFitting since from their garages from the very beginning, before Reebok, that are going to kind of be anti-establishment and say, you know, they've lost the heart and soul of CrossFit and blah blah blah. And I came into CrossFit after Reebok, so I guess I can't really comment on that, you know. But nobody can deny that definitely that they have definitely legitimized the sport and made it appeal to a much, like, you know, broader audience. So I can see the same thing happening for you know, for obstacle racing. What will be interesting though is that unlike CrossFit, obstacle racing isn't a unified system. So, you know, you'll have your Reebok Spartan race, but then you still have Tough Mudders, and you have, you know, your Warrior Dashes and your civilian military combines, and so it's different. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that, and if somehow they all become unified, which I don't see happening, but I don't really know how you can make a professional circuit of something without a unified body.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be what my, like, thinking would be going towards. So.
Well, I'm hoping to try and work for that. I'm trying to, you know, work with Matt, work with whoever is interested, you know, to try and push some kind of initiative forward in obstacle racing leagues or something like that. So, you know, I definitely see it happening if we ever want to move forward, like you said. So moving forward for yourself in 2013, what kind of races do you have coming up soon, and what's the rest of your year look like?
So I, last minute, as usual, I decided to fly out to the Super Spartan this weekend in Southern California, as long as work allows. So that decision will probably be made late Thursday night. And then the week after, I'll be up at the Winter Death Race back in Pittsfield. So I do love the death races. And then on board, you know, I have a host of Spartan races and running a few Tough Mudders. And I don't know, my schedule always changes. So as new and interesting things come up, I was hoping to be able to make it down to Nicaragua for the Fuego y Agua. More and more with work, it's really hard for me to take off for a week with no cell phone service whatsoever, especially right now and where I am. So unfortunately, probably that won't happen, but it's okay. Hopefully there'll be other opportunities.
And do you see yourself doing World's Toughest Mudder this year?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I think I hope they change up the format a little bit. I mean, part of me is like, 3 years in a row in New Jersey is rough. No, you know, I'm not scared of it anymore like I was. I don't really think I have the PTSD coming off of it again. So I see myself out there next year, and go out there and, you know, and give it up my all. So, but you know, it's every year more and more, and, you know, especially as money starts coming in these things, more like really good professional athletes are going to start competing. So we'll see the sport evolve, definitely.
Cool. Well, we're looking forward to seeing what you do, and I thank you so much for being on the show. It was really awesome chatting with you, and I hope that our viewers will enjoy seeing you and kind of getting this little interaction. So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good.